Welcome back, friends. This time we will get to know a multi-talented animal. He is versatile and very great. Okay, let's get started. He is a bee. Surely we all already know what bees are. Bees are a type of insect that lives in colonies. The number of bees in one colony can reach 60,000. However, did you know that a colony only has one queen bee whose job is to lay eggs? How is it possible that a queen bee can produce so many other bees, numbering up to tens of thousands? Let's first find out who the queen bee is. It has the largest size among other types of bee. Food and living are taken care of by worker bee. The queen bee is the bee that is responsible for the reproductive process in the honeybee colony. This female bee is the only one who carries out the mating process. The queen bee is usually a mated adult female bee that lives in a honeybee colony or nest. With fully developed reproductive organs, the queen usually becomes the mother of most, if not all, of the bee in the hive. Queens are developed from larvae selected by worker bee and fed specifically to become sexually mature. Usually there is only one mated adult queen in a nest, in which case the bees will usually follow her and protect her fiercely. The term queen bee can be applied more generally to any dominant reproductive female in a colony of eusocial bee species other than honey bee. However, as with stingless bee, a single hive may have multiple queens or even dwarf queens. Ready to replace the dominant queen in the event of its sudden death, a glance at queen bee. And finally, for the warriors, worker bee. In general, 90% of the bee from each colony are female worker bee. A worker bee is any female bee that does not have the reproductive abilities of a queen bee and performs most of the tasks required for a colony to function. Although worker bee can be found in all eusocial bee species, the term is rarely used outside of the scientific literature to refer to bee other than honey bee, especially the European honey bee. Apis mellifera. Worker bee of this species are responsible for 80% of food plant pollination services worldwide. The life of worker bee begins and develops from inside a cell with a sheath made of beeswax. When they are ready to come out, they will bite through the thin layer of beeswax. Even though they have just arrived in the world, these young bee are ready to do their first task, namely tidying the nest. The first thing they do is go back into the cell they used to live in and tidy it up so that it is ready for the next egg to inhabit. The queen will only put her eggs into cells that are really neat. Therefore, the bee work will not be completed easily and will take around 1 to 3 days. After the worker bee are finished with housekeeping duties, they will enter a new role and task for the next 2 weeks, namely as nurses. In this phase, they will have more diverse tasks, including caring for and feeding the larvae in the cells. Nurse bees will feed the larvae with a mixture of honey, pollen and royal jelly. They also check the larvae at least 1,000 times a day. Another task carried out by nurse bees is caring for and feeding the male bee and the queen, because neither of them can care for themselves. Nurse bee are also tasked with removing the feces of the male bee and the queen. When the mating period has passed, the nurse bees will also carry out cleaning, namely removing the male bee, by dragging them out of the nest. This is done because food supplies are limited and male bee are no longer needed. Within a few days, the male bee will die due to cold or starvation. Some of the lucky nurse bee will be chosen to accompany the queen as her entourage. This group must take care of all the queen's needs, starting from preparing food, caring for her, and disposing of her droppings. The role of the queen's companion bee is very crucial for the survival of the colony. This is because this group is also tasked with providing encouragement so that the queen carries out her obligation to produce 2,000 eggs a day. At around 12 to 18 days old, worker bee can produce wax powder from glands located under their stomachs. The nest-making bee will then chew the wax powder to become beeswax. They then shape it into a nest with a perfect hexagon shape complete with a casing where the bee, eggs and larvae will live. To produce 1 kilogram of beeswax, bee must eat 8 kilograms of honey. Thanks to this skill, nest-making bee are called architects of the colony. These bee have the task of feeding the queen bee and larvae, building nests, looking for nectar and producing honey, and looking for water. With these many tasks, worker bee have the smallest bodies and have stingers. However, if a bee stings, the bee will die. At 12 to 18 days old, worker bee can assume multiple roles simultaneously. They will serve wherever they are needed. At this age, the most common role of worker bee is to build a nest and fan the area around the nest. There are worker bees whose role is to regulate the temperature and air circulation in and around the nest so that it doesn't get too hot. To regulate this, these bee will flap their wings rapidly to draw in fresh air from outside and circulate it into and around the hive. When they are 18 to 21 days old, worker bee already have stingers that can be used as weapons. These bee will guard every entrance to the nest. Apart from protecting the nest from predators such as wasps, bears and skunks, guard bee also ensure that the bee that enter are members of the colony they are guarding. If guard bee detect danger, they will send a signal to other members of the colony. Guard bee can sting other insects many times, but they can only sting mammals, including humans, once and then die. Once worker bee are old enough, they will carry out their final role and task, namely looking for food sources. They travel as far as 5 kilometers and perch on flowers to collect pollen, nectar, propolis and water and take them to the nest. They will continue to carry out this task until they die from exhaustion. Apart from collecting food, the bee that come out of the nest also carry out reconnaissance. They will look for potential places that can be used for new nests. Once they have marked a potential area, they will call a group of bees from the colony to test the spot.